Specflow tutorial part 14 data table part 1. In part 13 we have learned about the parallel executions. So in this session we are going to learn about what is Specflow data table and its utilization, and then we are also going to learn about what is the difference between a data table and a scenario outlines. So let me start this session. So tables are used to handle a large amount of data. So when we talk about a large amount of data, what is the real scenario? Take an example of you are on any of the contact page and you are creating a contact. Whenever you are creating the content, you need to provide a different information related to first name, last name, date of birth, all the information, because the contact is having a n number of information which we require to fill the information. To handle a large amount of data, the Specflow provides a table, and that is having a very handy data table for us to deal with a large amount of data. So whenever you want to use a data table in your automation framework in your classes, then you need to have a namespace which is a talk specflow.assist. So let me flip to project to understand with an example. Right now we have this particular project, and this Specflow session project we have created in the previous sessions. So if you talk about a data table, so let me go it here on this particular site. This is a demo knob commerce file, and when we commit here on this particular registration page, it is having a different field. So this is a personal detail or personal information. Whenever the user is going to register it, it is going to fill it. So these are the different fields which we can provide it inside whenever we are registering it. So this is a way we can say this is a large amount of data. Whenever we are filling information on the fields on that particular page, we can say that is a large amount of. Let me use a data table to handle this particular page. So whenever you want to create a feature file, you need to click add new items, Specflow, and a feature file for the Specflow, and here register user. So we have created a one feature file. This is a register user, so we can provide the name as register user for knob commerce, and then we are going to add a one step definition. Given user land to registration page. So we have added a one step which is saying given user land to a registration page. So whenever we are going to commit here on this particular page, we are going to land it here. So after landing on this particular page, we are going to add the information. We are going to select the mail, first name, last name. So one way is to deal this. Whenever we are adding the information, we can say when user adds first name, and then we are going to provide the first name. Another is when user adds last name. In this way we are going to add all the steps related to that particular fields, those exist on that particular registration page. But if we see it, if we have a 10 fields, then we are going to add a 10 steps, and we are going to bind those steps with the help of the step definition. So this is not a good approach. That's why Specflow came up to handle such type of the large amount of data with the help of the data table. And then how are you going to handle the data table? Let's commit here. If we are saying when user adds registration information, so this is a one step. We are going to write it, and then we are going to create a table. Here we have the gender, then we are going to have the first name, and we have the last name as well. And after having the last name, what other information we are going to add it? So we are going to add the date of birth and the email and the company name. Date of birth, and along with the date of birth we are going to add the information related to a company or the organization. So instead of adding steps for each and every field, we are going to create a one step, and inside this particular step we are going to declare a table. We are going to add the table. So we have added, so these are nothing but a header of that particular table. Now we are going to add the information to these particular columns of the table as well. So right now we are saying gender is male, the first name is Indrapal, the last name is Singh, and then the date of birth 02, we can say 021990, and then we have the company as well. The company is trainer. So we have added two rows. If you talk about the first row is going to represent all the columns, and in the second row we are going to have all the values. So this is the representation of the data table. So let's get rid of these, we don't need it. So these steps purple in color, it means they don't have a corresponding step definitions. So whenever you want to add the step definitions of these steps, what you need to do is right click, say define steps, and whatever the step definitions those are available here, we can click on copy to clipboard. So we can commit here inside the Specflow session project, right click, add, and we can say class, give the name as a registration information, and then click on add. Whatever the step definitions which we have copied it, we need to paste it here. So whenever we are saying we are going to declare any class as a step definitions class, you need to add a one keyword on the top of the class name, which is this a binding keywords. So now we can say this registration information is a Specflow class because we have added a keyword related to a binding. So when we commit here on this particular step definition, it is saying user adds the registration information and it is having a one parameter related to table. So this table is going to hold all the information. So this table is a class which is present inside a Specflow namespace. So this table is going to represent the data which we have passed it here. So now if we do a build, let's have a rebuild to check it whether these are getting it having a corresponding step definitions or not. The build is successful, and if we can see these have a corresponding step definitions. So right click, go to definitions. So this table holds all the information in the form of the rows. So whenever we are saying in the form of the rows, we have one property inside these tables. This is a rows property. So this rows property is going to return all the rows those are present inside this particular steps which we have added. So if you talk about this particular step, it is having a 2 rows, but it is going to return only a single row because the first row is going to considered as a column row. This is a header row. If you want to access the headers, then we have another property which is a headers property. So this headers property is going to return all the headers those are present in that particular table in the form of the steps. So if we talk about the return type of the header is a I collection string, it is going to return all the column values those are present in the table. So whenever you want to iterate the values, whenever you want to iterate the rows those are present in that particular table, then we can use a for each loop. So this table row, so this table row is a class inside a tech.specflow. So this table row class is going to represent a one row of that particular table. So here we are saying row in table dot row. So it is going to have all the rows one by one. So whenever you want to access the values, then we can say console dot write line, and here is a row. So row is going to represent that particular single row. So we can use these square brackets. You can provide the index values or you can provide the headers as well. So if you talk about the index values of this particular table is going to start it from the 0. So this column is going to represent with the help of the zeros index. If you don't want to use a header name, then you can use an index value, but preferably is always try to use a header name as well. So if we say gender, then it is going to return the values those are coming it from that particular rows as well. In case if you want to display a value of a first name, then we are going to use a row and then the column name, which is this a first name. In this way we can access all the values. If you don't want to use a column names, then we have another property which we can use it related to headers, string header in table dot header, and this header is going to return all the values. So it is going to iterate one by one. Then we can use this console dot write line row, and then we are going to provide the header name here as well. So in this way we can access all the values related to that particular steps which we have added in the form of the tables as well. So now if we want to execute it, let's commit here, let's comment out this piece of code, and then whenever you want to invoke the test cases, we are going to go test explorer, and here we have a different test cases. One test case is related to a register user a feature. So right click and say run. Test case ran successfully and it has displayed all the values those are present in this particular step in the form of the tables as well. So whenever you are talking about this particular step, we are accessing the information with the help of the rows. We can iterate the tables with the help of the for each loop. So we can also save the values in classes as well. So what we guys can do is we can create a class, and in the classes we are going to declare a different properties, and whenever we are going to get this particular table, we can convert this table to the object to the instances as well. So let's do one thing. Let's create a class here. Right click, add class, user information is the class name, and inside this particular user information we are going to add a few properties: public, string, gender, and then we are going to have a getter and setter of the properties. Whenever you are creating the class in and adding the different properties with the name as well. So what is main job and what you want to do is you want to save the information in these particular user information classes in the form of the objects, in the form of the instances as well. So you need to keep in mind whenever you are creating the properties, the name of the properties should be same as the column name, as the header names. The way we are adding the column names here, we need to add the same properties here, so that whenever we are pushing the values, whenever we are using a table to convert it to the object of the instances, automatically the values should be assigned to the respective properties as well. So now if we talk about another property, we can say first name, and this time it is going to be the getter and setter property as we have added for above. We are also going to have it for the last name as well. We have added these fields. Now if you talk about the another field is related to a date of birth. So let's commit here. We are saying public. So instead of saving the value in the string, what we are going to do is we are going to use a date time. So date time help us to save the information related to a dates as well. So right now if you talk about this particular date of birth, it is having a date which we are going to save it in the form of the date of birth. We can have another property with the help of the email. We are going to save it in the form of the getter and setter properties. So we have created a class which is this user information class, and we have added these properties, and these properties existed here inside this particular data table. So whenever we are going to convert a table to the instances or to the set, automatically the information which we are having it in these particular rows are going to assign it. So now let's commit here. So whenever you want to convert that particular table to instances as well, then we have one property dot, and here is a create instance. So as a create instance, what it is accepting, it is accepting a type. In this particular case, what we are going to do is the type is this particular user information. So let's have this user information, and then we are going to close it. So what information, where are we going to save it? We are going to save this particular information as an object or in the form of the user information. So this user information is having all the values, those are presented here, those are coming it in the form of the tables as well. So another important point we need to keep in mind, whenever we are creating the instance, you need to have a single row in that particular table, otherwise we will not able to create the instances, otherwise we will not able to use this particular method of the tables as well. Now we have the values. What we are going to use it, we are going to use a display the information user information dot, and it is having a different information. We can use a last name to display it. So let's comment out this piece of code to make it more clear, and now let's go and invoke this. Test case ran successfully and we able to get the information related to a last name as well. So in this way we can get the values from the tables and we can convert it into the objects as well. So if we talk about this particular data table, we have saved the information horizontally. We can also save the information in the vertical as well. So whenever we are adding the information, whenever we are creating the data, so let's copy this column and the step as well. We are going to add the information here itself. So we are going to convert all the columns in the vertical, and then we are going to add the rows as well. So this is the first name, this is the last name, and this is the date of birth with the company as well. So we are going to add the information. So whenever we are talking about adding the information, we can say it is a male, and then we are going to name the out as well, last name, and along with the last name we are going to add the date of birth here as well, and we also going to add the information related to an organization, related to a companies as well. So whenever you have a large number of fields, it is better and it is recommended to use a vertical data table instead of having a horizontal data table. So there is not much difference between the vertical and the horizontal. The functionality with respect to the table is going to be the same, only the user interface is better in this particular vertical as comparison to the horizontal. Let's invoke this. We can commit here and we can have a debug point. So right click and say debug. Control has reached it here, and whenever we hover a mouse on this particular last name property field, we can see the name is the same. So in this way we can create a table, and we can create a table in the two ways. One is a horizontal, another we can create a vertical as well. We can convert, we can use this create instance method of a table class to convert the object, to convert the table into the object as well, and then we can use these properties wherever we want. So that's it in this session.